Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jedlie, and this is a special Protecting the Planet with Your Kids episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts, in the shadow of the great Blue Hills here on the beautiful planet Earth. We're recording this interview in April. And here in Boston, it's snowing. It's crazy. But we're really, really excited. Please, right now, let me welcome my co-host, Alexia Brown. Alexia, how are you?
Hello, I am great. I am cold, but I am staying warm. But we are here today with Erin Twamley, who is the author of the book Capturing Cow Farts and Burps. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. How are you?
Good morning, Alexia and Jed. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and share a little burp and fart knowledge with all the listeners today.
Awesome. So could you just tell us a little bit about the book just to start off?
Yes. So the book Cow Farts and Burps is an early reader illustrated picture book that came out in September of 2020 from Waldorf Publishing. And believe it or not, folks, it's a nonfiction book, meaning everything in it that I share with kids and readers is true, because we in fact are working with scientists, engineers, and farmers to figure out how we can capture the gas from cows' burps and farts.
I'm having a hard time not laughing out loud as I think about this scientists and researchers and whatnot who've spent years and years and years earning their degrees and their doctorates. And, they woke up one morning and someone said, yeah, we want you to go down and capture cow farts. That's what you're all about.
Yeah. So I think what's important to think about, right, or ask yourself is, what do you think a burp or a fart is made out of?
Ooh, good question. I'm not sure I know.
I have no idea either, other than something that just makes me laugh.
So burps and farts are actually created from gases. They are a natural byproduct of digestion, right? So there's specific kinds of gases and burps and farts of cows that we are looking to capture. And one of those gases is actually a greenhouse gas that you might be familiar with. And that gas is called methane. Have you heard of methane?
I have, for sure. Yeah, I definitely know that is one of the gases that makes up our atmosphere, right?
Yes, that is right. It's found both naturally, and we also, methane can be a man-made gas. But this methane is a very bad gas. It's actually 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide in its ability to trap heat in our atmosphere. So what scientists are trying to figure out is if cows are emitting numerous or a large concentration of methane gas, is there a way that we could capture it and remove it from our atmosphere? Now, you might also be thinking, well, okay, really, how many cows could there be living on Earth? Do either of you have a guess and give me a number of the number of cows that live on Earth?
Let's see who comes closest, Alexia. I'm going to go with at least a couple million.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe 2 million.
Okay. So both of you need to change your millions to billions. There are actually 1.5 billion, yes folks, that's a billion with a B, cows that are living on Earth.
Wow, we both just made the same face. Eyes wide open, mouth wide open. Oh my goodness.
That's a lot of gassy cows, right? And what you have to think about is if you look at the world globally and cows and their use is they're not only used for their dairy products or for their meat, but they're also used in places sometimes like ox or like horses. So they help farmers, they help rural communities carry things. And they're also like a status symbol in some countries, right? Where they're just renowned. And so we have this huge population of cows all around the world that are burping and farting this methane gas. And because of the number of cows on Earth, that's one of the reasons that we are actually working to figure out how to capture this gas, because there are so many cows emitting. It is important to note that cows emit most of their methane from their burps. So as silly as their farts are, their burps are one of the biggest emitters. And that's just because of the way a cow digests. So cows actually swallow their grass whole, then regurgitate it back up into their mouth and chew it, which is called cud. And so through this process, they're actually swallowing air, and then air is going back down into their stomach. And so all of this gas is a byproduct of this whole digestive process of when they eat all of these different plants, and grass is one of the largest ones.
Well, you know, I'm imagining, if my son was still sitting in my lap and we were reading together. He's bigger than me right now at 28 years old, so that would be awkward if we were doing it now. But I'm imagining if we were back in time and we were reading Capturing Cow Farts and Burps, and I was explaining to him why this was happening, the first read, he would just be laughing his entire time, and I would absolutely have his full attention. He would want to know everything about this really fun and kind of gross topic.
Yes, exactly. That's why I wrote it. I got the idea, actually, I was visiting my hometown elementary school in a group of fourth graders, and I have a chapter that's called Burps, Farts, and Greenhouse Gases in one of my first books on climate change. And the kid just kept asking me questions about methane and why cows are releasing methane, and just a series of inquisitive questions that got me thinking, well, wait, I could do an entire book just on this fact right here. So that's kind of how it started. And you're right. It engages kids, but it also engages parents, right? And the adults and the inner kids in us, because it is grounded in science, and because we don't understand how many cows we do have on Earth. And we don't understand that, there are things that we can do to capture this methane gas, so that we can actually reduce the amount of it that we have on Earth.
Yeah, here at Reading with Your Kids, we love books where not only kids are learning, but the parents are actually learning, and you're learning together, which is just such a wonderful experience, I think, and it can create such awesome dialogue and curiosity about our planet.
Yes, I think you're so right. One of the reasons I started writing, so I'm a teacher, that's my background, is that I love a book because it educates not only kids, but parents. And so often we think, well, parents or teachers or adults in children's lives need to expose them to information and knowledge. But there are so many adults and parents and caregivers who don't have this knowledge. So they get to learn right along with their kids and go exploring with their kids. And I think that really shows kids that as adults, we act like experts, but really we're not. And there's stuff that we can learn every day. And protecting our planet and our environment is one of those most important ways and ways that we can use such knowledge.
Yeah. I'm wondering, Erin, now we all know that cars pollute. And as we're driving our cars that are fueled by gasoline, we're sending this stuff, this carbon dioxide up into the atmosphere, and it's hurting our planet. How does that compare to, does a cow burp and fart as much pollution as a car or two cars, or what's the ratio?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the easiest way to think about it is like this. There are three large sectors that emit the most gas. One is transportation. That's the one that we're probably most familiar with. And that's about 40% of our emissions. So 40% of our pollution or our gases, if you will. And then cows are actually part of a sector called agriculture. And we used to think that agriculture really was only 9% of emissions. But what we figured out by studying it, by asking scientists to look at things like cow farts and burps, is that agriculture is actually 22% of our emissions. Because if you think about agriculture, it's not just cows, but there's also farming, the farming tractors, the farming tools, the amount of water that's used to not only grow crops, but also to, quench the thirst of animals on farms, right? So 22%, it's still less than transportation, right? So it's about half of what our transportation or our car pollution is. But it's still an important part for us to recognize and figure out how we can influence our agricultural needs, production, and really the amount of kind of food waste, if you will, that we as humans have, and especially in the United States.
Yeah, I think like sometimes we think about like cutting down our emissions and things like that. And it's important to look at it as a whole, because if you only want to cut down on one portion of that thing, like we can't just get rid of all of one sector. That would be really, really challenging. So it's more beneficial to all of us if we look at the different sectors and really learn a lot about them so we can cut back on all sectors and make the biggest impact.
Yeah, I think you're right, Alexia. It's important to take that holistic view. If you look just at farm animals, though, I think what's super interesting about cows is that we can actually change their diet. So one of the other things that I talk about in the book is not just the inventions and technology that's trying to capture this methane gas, but scientists and farmers are actually feeding cows, and New York Times just had a great article about this. If you feed cows seaweed actually makes cows produce less methane when they burp and fart. So as part of like the digestive process, seaweed, garlic, and actually curry are the three different types of foods that will reduce that methane that they emit. So some of these changes could be just simple as changing a cow diet in order to protect our environment.
Do we run this? This sounds like a silly question, but we think about cows and okay, time to eat, Bessie. Just kind of go out in the grass and chomp away. Are we going to create different issues if now, instead of just sending the cows out to the field to eat the grass, we're transporting seaweed from the ocean into, say, like Kansas and Missouri?
Yes. I mean, you bring up a good point, right? And to Alexia's point, we have to take a holistic approach. So as interesting as it is to say, well, yeah, let's change cow diets and let's feed them seaweed, we do have to figure out where that seaweed is coming from, right? Is it man-made, homegrown in a lab seaweed? Are we actually harvesting it from the ocean? Where is it coming from, right? The food miles that it takes to get that seaweed from point A to Missouri or to the farm, and all of that impact. So I think what I like to do in this book, and the reason that I wrote it, is because I wanted kids and parents to see that science is ever evolving, and we are working on different technologies and our understandings and solutions, and that even though as humans, I think we want a silver bullet for climate change, right? We want to protect our environment and we want to solve the problem tomorrow. There is no silver bullet, and it's going to take a myriad of solutions to figure out how to protect our environment. And we each as individuals, but also as professionals like scientists, farmers, and engineers, will play a role in figuring out what solutions work best.
This is, I think, a great way to to again talk to our kids about looking at a problem in the big picture of a problem. And instead of just saying, okay, we need it, 2 + 2 = a problem, so we just need to change that equation a little bit. It's like, no, if we change it, then another problem could happen. And I think that that's a great lesson for kids to learn and apply to all of aspects of their lives.
Yes, Jed, I agree, right? Everything's connected. So our love of ice cream and hamburgers and milk is one of the reasons that we have so many cows on Earth, right? Sure, we could eat less cows and less dairy products, but at the same time, then what are we going to use to fill that protein need? Are we just going to be growing lentils somewhere else that also take a lot of power, water to grow? So I think it is a good point that all of these things are connected, and we don't live in a silo. We all live on Earth, and cows and understanding our connection to something like cows is just one way to get kids interested in talking about a larger topic like climate change, like greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah, exactly. I absolutely love that, and I love like the lessons that you're really bringing through in this book. It is really cool to see such like an important part of climate change kind of talked about in a way that all of us can really easily understand, and I love that.
Yeah. Erin, one of the things I love, you talked about, we can help cut our cow burps by eating less meat and less ice cream. And that's really wonderful. But I just have to ask, the name of your book is Capturing Cow Farts and Burps. And I haven't asked you yet, how are we planning to do that? Are we going to put diapers on cows and put like absorbing masks on their face to capture the gas?
Actually, you've got one of the inventions right there, and such a good question. So scientists have a different set of inventions, and one of them actually looks like you're talking about a mask. It looks almost like a dog muzzle. So if you Google it, it's called ZELP, Z-E-L-P. And you will see cows that are wearing this. It doesn't hurt them. It doesn't, have any kind of impact. They can still chew. They can still eat. They can still do what they normally do. But it actually takes their burp and it breaks it down into water. And so it's capturing that methane gas. So that's one invention. The second one is a backpack. So if you Google like a cow wearing a backpack, you'll actually see it almost looks like a giant backpack or a scuba diving tank that can also capture it. So, because burps and farts go into the air, right? So it's something has to capture it. The other thing that we're doing is working with where cows live. So like on barns, putting in ventilation systems that can capture the gas and differentiate that methane. And so all of these inventions first have the first problem to solve, which is one, where is the methane and how can they get the methane from the burps and farts? Because it's important to think about the characteristics of methane. Do you think we can see methane?
Well, I've never seen any methane, and I produce a lot of what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Yeah, so methane is a gas in which you can't see it, you can't taste it, and you can't smell it, actually. So one of the first things that I love to do when I do school visits is I ask kids, how would you capture a gas that you can't see, you can't taste, you can't smell, right? Because that's really the first problem that scientists have to figure out is how do we find this gas if, the visible person can't? And there's a second cool invention, which I think will blow your minds and you will love. And it almost looks like a giant thermometer, but it's a methane laser detector. So it's literally a laser gun that scientists can use that tracks the movement of methane. It will tell you how fast the methane is coming out and moving, and it'll tell you the direction that the methane is moving. So you can imagine that you're aiming that in a barn, and it'll tell you and kind of beep, and there's a red pointer laser, and it'll show you where all of that methane gas is.
Wow, that is like a superpower.
Yeah. It's like laser tag in the country.
Yeah, laser tag in the country. And what's neat, right, is there's engineers and scientists who had to invent that detector, right? There are people who had to just first come up with that technology, right? How do we find that methane? Once we find the methane, we have lots of technology that's already been invented where we actually take methane gas, we burn it in a digester, and then we can turn that into electricity. And so we can power houses and also trains. So Germany and Sweden actually are some of the leaders in converting methane into electricity. So in Sweden, there is a biogas powered train. And in Germany, there are about 4 million homes that are powered by methane gas itself.
Wow, it's amazing. All these people working together to solve a problem and to protect our planet.
Yeah. Really.
Yes, and I think that's also what's neat for kids, right, is maybe you don't want to be the scientist who studies methane and understands its characteristics, but maybe you want to be the inventor or the engineer that figures out what the methane laser detector looks like or what the backpack should look like that a cow wears. How big should it be? How small should it be? What color should it be? How heavy does it need to be? What should it be made out of? As well as farmers, right? Farmers are involved with this. They're working with engineers and scientists to ensure that their cows are safe and healthy, and that they can figure out how to maintain their life and their sustainability as well.
Wow.
And I was going to say, I'm thinking there are some kids out there who just want to get the laser gun and shoot the methane all around.
Yeah, they want to detect that. They want to detect that methane. Yes, and I'm sure they could. It's probably super expensive.
Yeah, that's an expensive Nerf gun for sure. So, Erin, just for families and kids back home that maybe don't have their own pet cow to kind of do experiments with and learn all about their farts and their burps and everything like that, do you have like an activity or a craft or something like that families can do together to continue this knowledge and continue this learning?
Yeah, so what's great actually is I have a activity book that'll be coming out. I also have a website that has like a free activity for kids to draw an invention that they would use or create to capture methane. But also the Science Journal for Kids, which if you're not familiar with this, parents and listeners, write this down. It's called Science Journal for Kids. There's a website, there's an Instagram account, and what they do is take what they call cutting edge science like this, and they write up lessons and activities for you to do at home. And there is one on cow farts and burps and the cost of these emissions. So go to Science Journal for Kids, and you will find, just type in literally cow farts, and it'll be the only lesson that comes up so that you can further explore this. Otherwise, you can go to my website, which is just my name, ErinTwamley.com. You'll see the cow farts book and some printable resources that are all free for you to download, and you'll see some of my other books that I have as well in this sustainability place.
I would love to see some of the pictures of inventions that kids are thinking about. I think that could be really fun, and I have a feeling that there are some kids, some of their ideas might be the next invention that we'll be seeing.
Yes, so that's such a good point. I actually have pictures, and I'll be posting them on my Instagram account. You're gonna move me to do that because kids have come up with some really interesting ways and tools to do that. And I think what's amazing is when you give kids a problem like this, how do you capture something you can't see? The things that they can come up with, not only just with tools they're familiar with, but what they create in their head that's brand new that nobody's ever seen before, are really intriguing and just show the imagination and the curiosity that kids have, and that they should really be agents in helping us to create our sustainable future.
Yeah, I hope you do post those. I would love to see them.
Yeah. Alexia, one of the things I need you to help me with, though.
Okay.
I need you to make sure that my beautiful wife doesn't hear the part of the episode where Erin was telling us about the Zelp thing, because I don't want her getting any ideas for me to wear one. I
All right. I can make sure that doesn't happen.
So, Erin.
Yeah.
Well, this was a lot of fun. We learned so much, and I really encourage parents, if you have that 7-year-old boy or girl or 10-year-old that just laughs every time you mention the word fart or someone burps, use that, embrace that. Don't be going crazy. Oh, it's impolite. It might be impolite, but this might just be a great way to get that kid engaged in science and learning, help that kid develop a love of learning and protect our planet together.
Yeah, Jed, that's such a great point. And I think, oftentimes parents are like, oh, thanks, Miss Erin. Now my kid's talking about farts and burps. And yes, I promise you they will for the first 10 minutes. It's going to be silly. They're going to come up with things that you don't want to hear, right? They're going to be super excited, but you'll move the conversation into, well, what is a burp and fart made out of? A gas. Okay, what is a gas? And so you're really just using it as a way to entice them. And then once the science is there, you'll ask a series of questions together and you'll learn so much. And I think, it's important as, being an educator, also being a mom, is you need to find things that are relatable for kids. And burps and farts are just super interesting. All people fart, right? I always tell kids the average human farts about 20 times in a day. It's a natural thing that all living things do because it's a byproduct of digestion. So why not use this knowledge and get kids thinking about our future, our agriculture, and how we can just protect our planet.
Wow. Erin, you just said that the human beings on average fart 20 times a day. It is so wonderful to know that I am exceptional and above the crowd in at least one area.
Yes. And you know what scientists would do? They would say, well, Jed, maybe you need to look at your diet because foods like broccoli and garlic and fish, those are one of the reasons you might be exceptional, right? So there's a whole nother route you can go with all of this science is deep into the digestive processes. So I'm actually working on a prequel to this book. That would be Why Are Cows So Gassy, right? And understanding how gas is produced and looking at that digestive process. Because that's usually, the next question, larger question that people have is, are cows as gassy as a pig? No, cows are more gassy than a pig. Why? Right? And things like that.
Wow, I can't wait to read that when that comes out. That sounds so exciting. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for sharing all of your wonderful knowledge and your books. It has been such a pleasure to talk with you today.
Well, thank you for having me reading with your kids. I'm super excited to share about my book, Capturing Cow Farts and Burps. You can go to erintwamley.com to find more. And I hope you have a great rest of your day and Earth Day.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Kathleen Marcath. She'll be here to celebrate My Monster Truck Goes Everywhere with Me. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, especially our guest, Erin Twamley. Be sure to check out Capturing Cow Farts and Burps. I want to give a very, very special thank you to Alexia Brown, my co-host and co-producer for this series of Protecting the Planet with Your Kids episodes. Alexia came to me with this great idea. She researched, found some fantastic authors for the show, and it has been such a pleasure creating these episodes with her. I also want to thank the rest of my team, Alejandra Doherty, Fatima Khan, Helen Fraser, Justina Thompson. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.